Are we ready to start?
Yeah, sure. I mean, no rush. I got nowhere to be.
Yeah.
We've been waiting
Yeah.
for Adrienne to get the.
Get my water ski. Look at my water ski. It's not a new ski, it's a new binding. Look at this. Okay, so I know that a lot of you are not watching on YouTube, so I'll describe it for you. This is like a space age. No,
It's like an astronaut boot.
it's like an astronaut boot. So this ski is now 25 years old, but it is carbon fiber. It's lasting me really well. But I got a new binding because my old binding was really getting soft and falling apart. And this looks like a ski boot, like a snow ski boot. It's just not as big. It's got buckles that you tighten down, and it's got a Velcro at the top. And then it clicks in like an actual snow ski binding, like with the.
Oh, I didn't know it did that.
Yeah, it's got tensioned release on the back.
Right.
So I'm super excited. This is like the kind of ski binding that I used to use for many, many years, until it fell apart and I just didn't want to spend $600 on a single binding. But I figured this is probably going to be the last one of these I ever buy my entire life.
Yeah.
It's going to last me another 20 years.
Yeah, another 20 years. Yeah.
And I'm super excited.
No, that's great. That's amazing. It's amazing you've had that for 25 years.
I know. I keep looking at buying a new ski and then I'm like, what is the marginal utility of spending like $2,500 on a ski?
Right.
It's not going to be much. This ski is still working really well.
Yeah.
It's a little banged up. But,
Yeah.
Anyway. So, it's been a busy week, as it always is. Like, when do we ever come on here and be like, well, it's actually kind of slow this week. We didn't really do much. We just sat around and...
It'll happen eventually, I suppose, but...
Maybe at the holidays.
Yeah, well, let's jump into it. Where do we want to start?
Oh, how about with me going to see Alanis Morrissette at Ball Arena?
Oh my gosh, yeah. Can't believe that was this week.
I know.
Yeah.
I can't believe it was only 5 days ago.
Yeah, wow.
Feels like a long time because we've had a lot of gigs.
So Alanis, obviously famous for "Isn't It Ironic" and "You Ought to Know," and "Hand in My Pocket."
Hand in My Pocket.
Yeah, that album was massive.
Yeah, actually, Thank You, I think, was on the album that followed it up.
I think it was. Yeah, you're right.
But yeah, I had Jagged Little Pill and I sang "You Ought to Know" like at the top of my lungs in my bedroom in high school.
Yeah.
So I got a ticket to see Alanis. I wasn't going to because I figured it was just a nostalgia tour on an album. I did see her tour when she went around the first time 25 years ago. And, with ticket prices the way they are now. But then Parsons told me that it was an amazing show. So I said, well, who knows if it's going to happen again. So I went, and I'm glad I did because it was an outstanding show.
And Ball Arena is one of the better ones I've been to as far as arenas to see shows in. I don't always love, every arena I've ever been in, but like Ball is like it's a great place to see a show.
Yeah. So Joan Jett opened.
Which is wild.
The legend Joan Jett. She had so much swagger. Like, you can just tell when someone has been a rock star their whole lives.
Yeah. You really can.
She's still so cool.
Yeah.
It did feel a little bit like rehashing the classics. And she played some stuff that I didn't know, some stuff that was new for them, I'm sure.
Right.
In fact, I'm sure because she said so. But for me, it was like, I'm not super excited about hearing the old hits because I've heard them so many times, and I'm not super excited about hearing the new hits because I don't know them. So
it's a tough place to be in for,
So musically, I didn't feel excited about Joan Jett, but I did feel excited to see her because I could see how she paved the way for the next generation. And I mean, she may even be kind of almost like 2 generations ahead of me musically. Like, there's Joan Jett.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah.
So, like, the generation after her had to fight a little less hard
for sure
of women. And then there's my generation where I'm, maybe some guys treat me like I don't know what I'm doing, but most of the time that's not the case. I feel like I'm generally respected. And then the generation after me, the girls who are coming up, like the 20s and the girls who are coming up, so 2 generations below me, I think women are just going to be like, yeah, I belong here. And it takes generations for that to happen. And I see it in Joan, and I felt so grateful.
Yeah, you have to. I mean, I know a lot of people have somehow a bad opinion about women, in particular, paving the way into whatever. But I find it so valuable, and as you know, I make a special effort to make plenty of space for younger women and women coming into music. And I mean, I guess I always have, I mean, I got my start recording all-girl punk bands. I mean, that was my client base for a year or two while I was figuring out how to record music. So, but that's so great. And you got to look back at those greats like Joan Jett, who really, even paved the way for women trying to rock in the 80s even.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So it was great to see Joan Jett from that perspective. And it also was really thematic for the whole night. So the thing that I really enjoyed about Alanis's show was that it did not just feel like a nostalgic rehash. It feels like she has remained current. It feels like she's got something to say, and it's related to like women empowerment and self-value and society valuing women. And so together with Joan Jett, like the messaging of the whole night was really consistent.
Right.
And Alanis felt like her music has, as much as I thought they were not a one-hit wonder, but like a one album wonder.
Right.
It feels like that music has traveled forward in time and stayed relevant, and that she's traveled forward in time and stayed relevant. And she stayed vibrant. She had so much energy, and she was so engaged.
Right.
And the set was spectacular. The design of the set, not the visual design, well, that too, but like the song choices in order.
The flow.
The flow was perfectly done.
That is really impressive.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's really great. I was glad you went. I mean, it's one of those, like you said, how many chances,
Yeah.
And we all do that with music artists where you're like, I'll catch him next time. And
there is no next time.
Yeah, who knows?
I know. I mean, I missed Prince.
Tom Petty for me. I mean, I had half a dozen chances to go see him. And
Did you never see him?
Never saw him.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And, that's so great to hear that the show was good and it was impactful. And
yeah, it actually was impactful.
Yeah.
In the sense that, like, I think I take for granted how easy it's been to be a woman in music in my life.
Yeah.
In my life. I just kind of walk in, and maybe I'm a little self-conscious here and there, or I used to be. But all in all, I feel it's a rare case where I don't feel respected.
It's, well, you have an odd, I'm not to be messed with energy.
Yeah.
I mean, you're not some tough guy, or you're certainly not going to like yell at anybody or anything, but you've just kind of got like a serious air that like.
Yeah, and that definitely helps. But if it was 50 years ago.
Oh, yeah, no, it would have been very different.
Yeah.
It
doesn't matter how serious I would have been or how good I was.
Yeah, I mean,
would have had to fight for it.
You can be a girl and sing the pretty songs.
Yeah.
Or the,
You can play the tambourine.
Unrequited love songs or whatever. But like, like you're not going to have like a real full place. You're not going to be a bass player.
Right.
Yeah. And gosh, we could talk about that forever. It's probably worth like digging into. I mean, like there's Tina Weymouth, who was a female bass player for the Talking Heads. I mean, there were just, there have been people who've paved the way, and I've really enjoyed seeing over the years. I mean, when I first started out, it's not like no women played music, but if they did, it was usually pop, star, wannabe, or singer-songwriter with an acoustic guitar, and it was soft and all about your feelings, or it again was
that bass player, there's a session bass player, Carol Kay.
Yeah.
She was on a lot of stuff.
I mean, she was on all the stuff. She was a member of the Wrecking Crew, which was a very famous studio unit, group of studio players, and so she was on, if it wasn't Motown and it came out in the 60s and early 70s, she's pretty much the bass player on it.
Wow. Well, that's amazing.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah. And there's, I'm not saying there's no examples, but...
But yeah, they're so rare that they're notable.
Right. And I think now it's becoming much less that way, where you're like, it's not notable that a drummer happens to be female. Mm-hmm. Like, you don't kind of...
Yeah.
You know, it used to even be like kind of a gimmick, like, oh, we got a girl drummer or whatever, you know. Yeah. Or 90s rock bands would always have the girl bass player. Not always, but, you know, like there was that kind of cliche of the, you know. Yeah. Anyway, that's so great, and I love that... you know, Alanis is still out there having fun and...
Yeah, she really is.
Feeling relevant.
So then, moving on from that, I had 3 shows. You had 2. We had 2 together.
Right.
And I had 1 without you.
Well, why don't you start by telling me about Jacob Larson at the...
Yeah, we played at the Adams County Fair.
Yeah.
It was very hot.
Outdoors.
But we were in shade, and it was fun.
Yeah.
There was a DJ on before us, and I was dancing, because I was just like, I don't know. I was just like, it was good DJ. And I was just like hanging out, just like dancing around. That
was so much fun.
And I don't know if you've ever seen Joe do his dance.
No, I have not seen.
Joe has this, Joe Mondragon, teacher, bass player.
Joey Drags.
Joey Drags, not bass player, guitar player. He does this dance where he like puts his hands up near his ears, like his elbows bent, and then he sticks his butt out and bends his knees and like does this little ass shake. And it's so funny. It just makes me crack up every time I see it. And so I had Jacob shoot a video of me doing the Joey Drags happy dance, and I sent it to him. And it looked so silly.
Yeah, that guy will make you laugh. That's so funny.
Anyway, the show. Just a 1-hour set. Went by pretty quickly. Stefan Flores on drums. Bijou Barbos on bass. Good hang time with... and Steve Langamo on guitar, like usual. And Stefan on drums and Steve on guitar. They will not let me forget that they owe me. Oh, this was what happened on Monday. Remember?
My gosh.
So I forgot this happened since last podcast. So on Monday, Tuesday, I was at the lake, and I checked my phone when we finished skiing. It was like 8:30, and Jacob had texted, "Can you call me? It's an emergency." And I was like, "Oh my gosh!" So I called Jacob. Turns out he and Stefan and Steve were at the like Channel 9 or Channel 2 or whatever. They were going to do a live performance on TV that morning.
Yeah, morning TV.
And did not have a piece of gear. They needed either a mixer or a bass amp. So I drove home as fast as I could, ran in the house, grabbed a bass amp, ran downtown and delivered it to them. Yeah. And they're like, so grateful. They're like, "Can we buy you dinner?" And I was like, "Come on, man. I mean, it's just like friends helping friends. Like, no big deal." But they're so insistent that I'm like, "Fine, I'm going to milk this for all it's worth. I would like a few drinks. I would like a few dinners. Maybe you can buy me some music gear."
Why not? Why not?
Yeah, I mean, they wouldn't stop talking about it.
It was a big deal. You know, that's a bigger picture thing. I mean, that's going to happen. Yeah. You know, you're going to show up somewhere and assume they've got something ready for you, or, you know, it's happened to us. You just like...
Well, this was, Steve told me it was a situation where he like had a gig the night before, and then this day he had like 2 things back to back that he had to bring gear for. So it's just easy to forget one thing out of all of that stuff when you're packing in a rush in the morning.
It happened to me with, you know, the same weekend that I had that Half Sin gig, but then I also had people recording in my room and like splitting up the gear, and it just turned into like this whole, and then I wound up forgetting something important for my next gig because it had gotten into this pile of stuff. I mean, there's just so many, you know, it's no big deal, but they did the TV thing, and I saw that on Facebook. There was at least a snippet of them. I'm sure it's out there somewhere.
And apparently, that this was a Sandra Watts deal. For promotion, and she said that she put a whole bunch of Petty Nicks on in the background. She's like, "Did you see yourself? You were dancing around a whole lot." It's like, no.
Oh my gosh, that's so fun. Yeah.
So, speaking of the Petty Nicks experience, we had 2 shows.
2 shows.
One on Friday
night,
and one on Sunday.
Yeah, I would say pretty different shows.
Very different shows.
So Friday we were down in Castle Rock, which we didn't know that Castle Rock has an absolutely gorgeous, super cool old-timey downtown.
Yeah. Yeah.
I guess it makes sense, but it's not really that close to the highway. When you drive by on the highway, what you mainly see is they have a hotel exit and they have an outlet mall exit and whatever. But if you drive down in there, they have like an old-timey downtown that, of course, now has nice restaurants and a really nice brewery that we ate dinner at. Thanks, Vic, for that. So we performed for the city of Castle Rock, right in downtown Castle Rock. It was in a park. I couldn't guess about attendance, but it seemed really good.
Yeah.
It's hard to see,
I mean, that park was not large, but it was packed.
Yeah, I mean,
overflowing.
It was 1,000 people.
Yeah, I was maybe 1,500.
15, yeah.
And they were into it.
And there were people out on the margins. So, and they were into it. They were really, it was yet another time there were kids around and something about that act. Kids love it.
I signed arms. I signed 4 arms. They wanted.
I did sign arms as well.
Little girls.
Yeah, they wanted their arms signed. And, but I gotta say, once more, I was blown away that a bunch of these kids, and they turned out to be 10 or whatever, and they knew like an awful lot of the words, like the whole song. And I was like, how in the world did these people know this music? So that was really fun. We just missed it, but some of the guys got there. They had a crazy rainstorm in the afternoon. Soaked everything. I mean, there was standing water on the stage when we got there. And then I thought for sure we were getting shut down in the second set. Spinfany opened for us. And Spinfany is a string quartet, and they use backing tracks, and they like mash up different songs. Like they did a Coldplay song, and then it turned into Bach for a second, and then it went back to Coldplay. And anyway, so they opened up. People seemed to really like that. And then we went on and just did 7:30 to 9. So we didn't actually have a set break. But about 8:15, 8:30, I thought for sure we were going to get shut down because there was lightning.
A lot of it.
Just a lot of it.
Yeah.
And it kind of actually was cool. I mean, apparently the sound people were watching very closely on the Doppler radar. And so they knew it wasn't dangerously close. But it was a kind of a neat backdrop to the whole thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's summertime in Colorado. It's going to be a little violent.
I know.
Yeah.
And then 2 days later, we had the gig at Denver International Airport, and it was 100 degrees outside.
Yes, it was. It was super hot. So that was the gig where we were opening for the 70s, 80s band Ambrosia. And we played 2:30 to 3:30, which was hot.
Yeah, and fortunately there was a breeze through that.
There was a little bit of a breeze.
It was doable, and we were completely covered.
Yeah, we were at DIA, the Denver airport, and outside of the, there's a train that comes in, meets the airport, and then you go up, and then there's like this concourse area. I don't know what you'd call it, like
it's a huge grassy hangout area,
Yeah, they have a big grassy field, AstroTurf field, and then it's just meant for people to. It's a place for people to be, and they do a concert series booked by Sandra Watts, and we were opening up for Ambrosia, and then I believe there was Hot Lunch Band was after that.
No, they're the next date.
Oh, they're the next date. Maybe that's where I was confused. Yeah. Anyway, well, that was a very different show. 60 minutes. I would say we were not playing to much of our audience.
No.
It was definitely not a crowd that had come to see us.
Yeah. Yeah, and so they took a little winning over. They were lukewarm at the beginning, but we had them on their feet by the end. I was pretty proud of us.
We did get... When we hit the end, everybody jumped up to their feet, and I was actually shocked by that because I was like... I felt very much like people are not happy this is happening. I mean, some people were, and there were some people who had come for us, and they were very vocal, including the guy who was doing Borat impressions. I don't know if you caught that.
No.
Every day you would be talking, and he was going, "Very nice, my wife."
No.
Yeah.
Where?
He was like to your left.
Oh my gosh, no, I did not.
Like you would be like, but it was related to what was going on. You'd be like, I don't know if you did the cassette. I don't remember your talking points. You guys, who has a box full of cassettes? And he was like, yeah, very nice.
Oh my gosh. No, I had.
It was not our normal crowd. Yeah. Anyway, I was just like, yeah, just blown away. But we got him by the end, and it was a little weird too, just talking about a performance thing. Ambrosia did not want to strike their gear. So,
meaning remove it from the stage?
Remove it from the stage, sorry. Because they sound checked first. Not usually, it's the standard thing to do. You sound check in reverse order, meaning the headliner's going to sound check first, and then if there's direct support, they're going to sound check next, and then the very opener is going to sound check last, so that then you don't have to recheck them for their start time. Mm-hmm. Anyway, they didn't want to take any of their stuff off stage, and so large amount of the stage were taken up by these tall keyboard stands and stuff. And it was definitely in the way of our normal kind of moving around the stage. Mm-hmm. I was a little impacted, probably more. Yeah. I was kind of a little boxed in.
I wasn't super impacted. I mean, I didn't have a lot of space, but I had enough room to move.
It was a relief in some ways. I knew that at least half the crowd couldn't see me for half the time. Or maybe more, because when I would go back anyway, when I would move to stage right to like interact with Ryan on keys at all, no one could see me at all.
Yeah.
So
yeah, that's true.
Which, not that I minded, it was kind of like I don't have to perform right now because yeah.
But I mean, overall, the concert series was really well done, well organized, great production. The sound check was so fast.
Killer production.
Because just super skilled crew. Big sound.
Really big sound.
Really big sound, yeah.
And Brent, I believe, was the sound guy. And then overall, I have to give Sandra just so much credit for, A, putting something as complicated as that together. Yeah. B, treating everybody so nice. The food was great. The amenities were great. And then, she's always fun and friendly to be around. Yeah. And, so I was really impressed with that. The artists were really well taken care of, and I got to give her a lot of respect for how much she makes sure that the artists for the bands that she books get taken care of. Yeah. And that's,
It doesn't take, I don't think it takes a lot of expense in the whole budget, but it really feels good.
We've talked about it before, and I mean, we're not babies or prima donnas or whatever, but like, man, does it just make you feel better that like people are like actually happy to have you here, and then you go other venues, which I won't talk about, but like where like you're practically begging to get a glass of water. Yeah. And you're like, come on, it doesn't even need to be much if just there was some water backstage or, you know what I mean? A couple sodas, but we've been really lucky lately. There's been a lot of great stuff. So that was our gigging weekend. You had Jacob. I had Patty mix with you twice. It was kind of a long weekend. Oh, extra long because we had showcase rehearsal Saturday morning.
Right.
So we did our show in Castle Rock, and which is called Castle Rock because it has a big hill, and then there is a rock formation on the top that looks very much like a castle. To the point where if somebody told you that was just like a castle that had eroded a lot, you'd be like, oh, okay, weird, It looks like an old-timey castle. Anyway, and the park we were playing at, we were looking right at. Yeah. Playing right under the Castle Rock. And anyway, so we had that, and then we drove home, and I stayed up kind of late reviewing showcase stuff. And then, of course, we had showcase rehearsal. 9 a.m.
And then I jetted to Jacob's gig while you recorded somebody, and then I came back and picked you up.
Yeah, it was just
fun. It was a full weekend.
It was a full weekend. No real takeaways from the showcase. It was kind of just a standard showcase rehearsal, really. Yeah. Yeah. And I have been plagued even more by software woes. I have been having...
Oh my gosh, yeah.
I don't know what's going on. I had an issue this week where... I had finished an album, and I sent it off to the client for revisions, which is just like, hey, I want this different, I want that different, can you fix this, can you fix that? All good, I got some few notes back, went to go open things up, and absolutely, even weirder than none of the sessions would play, about 2/3 of them would not play at all. Or even weirder, you could see the little lights bouncing up and down like it was supposed to be making sound, but it was not making sound. And what was even weirder is I could open up some of the other projects from that same session, coming from the same hard drive, all that stuff, and they would play just fine. And after a week full of tracking it down, I tracked it down to one in particular plugin that obviously worked enough 2 weeks ago when I first finished the album. It was working fine then because I was able to finish the album. 2 weeks later, it would not let the sessions make any sound.
That's infuriating.
And I had to go through plugin by plugin because, of course, you don't get a printout of here's what's not working.
Right.
It's just it won't make sound, and which one of these things is short-circuiting the whole thing.
Yeah.
And so lots of experimenting. I was definitely let me take everything off of this row of plugins. Nope, that didn't change anything. Let me put it back. Let me take everything off of this row of plugins. Nope, that didn't change anything. Put it back all the way down, and then, oh wait, that fixed it for a second, but that's 30 plugins to go through.
Oh my gosh.
And I have had a bad run lately. It's been
a big waste of time for you.
It's been a big waste of time. Don't know what the fixes are, who knows, but anyway, that's kind of been our week.
Yeah. Whew. I can't wait to go skiing tomorrow.
I know, with your new ski boot, or ski binding.
Oh, I've been, since we've been doing so many gigs and making all this money, I also bought 2 basses. One of them hasn't arrived yet, but here's one of them. Mm-hmm. Marcus Miller, Sire, V7, 5-string. Unfortunately, I don't think I'm going to keep this one. Well, I wasn't going to keep both anyway, but I don't think I'm going to keep this one because you were unable to adjust the truss rod. The action is super high.
Yeah.
Because the truss rod, or the neck is not straight.
Right.
It's curved. So in the middle, there's a lot of space between the strings and the fretboard. And it seems like the nut is stripped.
Yeah, it's either stripped or it has some sort of weird proprietary tool that, you get directly from Sire, which most people don't do that anymore. So, real bummer. But you got another one that's supposed to be here tomorrow, so you'll get to have fun with that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It feels, I said this to you, it feels like a man's instrument. And that's a weird thing to say. But it feels that way because it is, it's big, it's heavy, it's solid.
And the neck is
It's pretty thick, so it feels like a big instrument for me.
Yeah.
So we'll see how well I can play it. I also do, though, I like there's a real feel to the sound. There's a
we were messing with the tone a little,
to the sound that I really like.
Right.
Yeah. So we'll just have to see how it feels. Well, we'll see how the other one
see how the other one shows up. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that, but the tone I was really liking. But they are big and heavy.
Yeah, and all the different tones we could get out of that thing.
I know.
Oh my gosh.
I was really impressed with the EQ knobs, and you could really get in there and be really tweaky with different sounds.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the active passive switch was pretty cool.
Yeah. It was it was fun for me too, because I haven't gotten to play with those Sire basses very much, and I've thought about getting one for the studio. Just as a studio workhorse kind of bass.
Yeah.
One thing that can happen with basses, and the white bass that lives at home does not have this problem, but a couple of the other basses I have the problem of dead spots, which is at least recording. I don't know why it would be different. Maybe that you're just going direct, but you'll have notes that just don't ring like other notes ring. You can go up chromatically and F sharp, G, and then that G is just weak and not as bassy, and then G sharp, and then A. And there's ways around that, but like it can be really frustrating that you know that a certain bass has a dead spot where you're like, when you go to there, it's going to just not have, the low end's going to go away a little bit.
Huh. I've never noticed that.
Yeah. So, well, you haven't because your basses don't have that problem.
Well, yeah, there you
go. Yeah, anyway, well, that was pretty much it. Any takeaways for the week?
Oh, boy. Sleep is important, is my takeaway.
Sleep is important.
Oh,
we missed a little bit this weekend.
Yeah.
And
buffer time is important.
Buffer time is very important.
We don't have enough of that right now.
Yeah, that is a big one. I really had a takeaway that, like, even though my takeaway specifically from the Denver airport show was just do the show. If you know the show works, even if it feels like it's not working, just trust the material and the show. And you're probably, maybe it's even like a blanket thing you could make a rule of, is like, maybe you're misjudging what's going on with people.
Yeah.
And, it was hot and all these things.
Hot.
It was very hot.
Yeah.
But like we just stuck to the show and we stuck to the show things we do and the whole thing as much as we could do. And it was weird. We're used to like building a thing a little. Playing, I hate to say playing only an hour because I always want to play less. But like at the same time, you feel like you're on the time clock a little more. Like you don't have time to let it slow build. You've got to we got to ramp this up fast.
Yeah.
We're not playing for 3 hours, you know? And, but at the same time, you just trust the show. You trust the talking points. You trust the little beats where this is where you or Julian or whoever connects with the audience and just and then to get that everybody standing up at the end, was like, oh, okay. That all worked. And it just really reminded me that sometimes, like especially with Petty Nicks, where just over time we've developed something, there's a bit of a formula to it that we know works. We might do it different ways, but there is kind of there's a recipe, and just like trust the recipe.
Yeah.
And that was a good reminder for me of like, no, just know that the recipe works and, or mostly works or whatever, works well enough, whatever you want to say. And that was my takeaway. Did we have any good food this week? I can't remember. Oh gosh, the catering in the green room was amazing. I don't think that was from a restaurant or anything. I think it might have just been DIA catering. We'll have to find out.
Yeah, it was good. Some barbecue.
It was barbecue. I thought it was great. But yeah.
I don't remember.
I don't know. We're done. Anyway, we're going to get out of here. We are sponsored, as always, by Performance High.
Voice and Music Studio.
Sure are. And we'll be back next week with more, tales of tech woes and thoughts about basses.
Yes. All right. See you guys next week.
All right. Bye.
Bye.